And it said, welcome to New York. It's been waiting for you. Welcome to New York. Welcome to New York. My friend and I are trying to figure out how to do like a barbershop jazz arrangement of Welcome to New York, or really any Taylor Swift song, because why not? That would be fantastic. Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new, my name is Maya. Welcome back if you're returning. It's been a while. Sorry about that. I would not recommend taking 4 APs during a pandemic. I've said it before, I'll say it again. We've also just gone back to full-time in person, which is terribly stupid. But I digress. Today we are going to be talking about the 23 books that I read in the first quarter of 2021. I'll not be talking about books that I've already discussed in previous videos, which include, I made a list. One Day in December by Josie Silver, Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis, The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater, Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata, Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, The Princess Bride by William Goldman, or Savage Appetites by Rachel Monroe. However, we will talk about all the rest, and there's a good selection. Apart from the ones listed, the first book that I read we're going to talk about today was called The Moon Lady by Amy Tan. Amy Tan is an author I admire so much. The Joylet Club is one of my favorite books of all time. It's beautifully written, the story is incredible, just incredibly talented writer. I think she also has a masterclass on Masterclass, which I somehow convinced my school to get a subscription to for my art class, so maybe I'll take that. That would be really neat. The Moon Lady is a children's book, and it's about the adventure of a young girl living in China and her family, and mistakes she makes and things she dreams of and adventures she has on this really special day in Chinese culture. I think I've read it before, maybe when I was much younger. This time I listened to the audiobook, and I would really love to read the physical copy sometime because I'm sure the illustrations are beautiful. But yeah, that one was a nice little break to have in between some heftier and heavier books. One of which was The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. I read it primarily because, one, it's the only James Baldwin audiobook my library has, which is kind of sad, and two, because earlier in the year I read Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and Ta-Nehisi Coates has been over and over and over compared to James Baldwin. In fact, he was compared to James Baldwin by Toni Morrison, which is like the highest praise ever. Something fun is that in The Fire Next Time, which is kind of a long essay, or I guess a series of essays, the words Between the World and Me are directly written, and that was just a cool comparison, and it made me smile when I heard it. It was not a light read. It was a quick read, but James Baldwin had such prowess in putting into words his experiences and the experiences of many, many, many people in Black and African American America. And it's just as relevant today as it was when it was published, if not more so, especially because as I'm filming this, the Chauvin trial is going on. So it was a book that was very potent in general, but especially for me as a reader at this time, living in the time that I am in and in the privileged body I was born into. I read a couple Agatha Christie books this quarter. I love Agatha Christie and murder mysteries in general. They're my little form of escapism, and they make me feel less guilty than true crime because it's fictional. And the two that I read were Death on the Nile, the movie of which was supposed to come out last year, and now I think it's sometime in September or August or something, as well as A Murderous Affair at Styles, the latter of which was the first in the series for Hercule Poirot, my favorite detective, rivaled perhaps by Sherlock, but who's to say? They're both fun. I have this habit for Agatha Christie where I'll turn on the audiobook when I'm brushing my teeth, getting ready for bed, and then going to bed, and I'll listen until I get tired. So I wake up the next day and I have no idea what's going on in the book, but I just kind of go with it because I can figure it out eventually. Probably not the best way to read a book, but for me they're more light reads and they're fun, and I really enjoy Agatha Christie's work for the most part. Just a clever lady. The Elephant's Girl by Celesta Remington. I narrated this one for Learning Ally. I've done a few, and by a few I mean 6 Learning Ally projects this school year, which is fantastic. I have a lot of volunteer hours, but also quite stressful. So I'm going to finish the one I'm narrating right now, and then I'll be done for a bit. But The Elephant's Girl is about a girl named Lexington Willow, and when she's little, There is a tornado in her town in Nebraska, and she is whisked away from her family and dropped off at a zoo pretty much by the tornado. And an elephant named Naya finds her, and the book's really about the bond between Lex and Naya the elephant. It's about conservation and preservation, family, friendship. It's just a really lovely book. I really enjoyed it. And I'll definitely be checking out Celeste Remington's books in the future. I've actually had a bit of a middle grade phase lately in the first quarter of 2021, which is very out of character for me, but fun. I love middle grade, and I think that it's so cool that there's a specific, not genre, but age range that is made so accessible and has become so diverse for young readers. Disney Fairies Collection #1 by Kiki Thorpe. What can I say? The ACT was stressful. Super against standardized tests here in Bespectacledville, I guess. But you know what? I have the SAT on Tuesday, so this is just about Tinkerbell, pretty much, and all her friends and their adventures and misadventures and ups and downs, and it was just fun. I really loved Fairies when I was small, and it was nice to revisit Pixie Hollow in a time that was pretty stressful for me. There There by Tommy Orange. Good grief. Wow. There There follows a range of characters, Indigenous and Native characters who live in or around near Oakland, and it's about their individual stories and relationships and struggles and triumphs and joys that all culminate at this one powwow that they all happen to go to. Devastating book. Completely beautiful. In the introduction, which I read at school, which just I could not stop thinking about it. Orange talks a lot about the colonization of the Indigenous and Native head from the very beginning of white people arriving in the Americas and mounting heads of Indigenous peoples on spikes and putting them in the centers of town, to today, where we have Indigenous heads as mascots for football teams. He also references the idea that Indigenous heads were used as decor for money and currency before Indigenous people or natives could vote. Just incredibly profound snippets of nonfiction written in such a beautiful way, combined with the fictional characters in this book who felt so alive and vibrant and real. Absolutely one of the best books I'm sure I'll read this year. And a book that we should be reading in school. I'll leave it at that. Just a side note that we should also be celebrating Indigenous and Native cultures just as much, if not more, than we discuss their traumas in public school. Amelia Bedelia Bookworm by Herman Parrish. This is another Learning Ally one. I listened to this and edited it for the reader, whose name was also Maya, so we were called Team Maya for a while, which was fun. Cute. I liked Amelia Bedelia when I was little. It's funnier, I think, now that I'm older, because I didn't quite understand why things Amelia Bedelia did were funny, because I thought that she was doing what was asked of her, but yeah. The Tao of Pooh by Benjamin Hoff. This one is really discussing the ideology of Winnie the Pooh and the characters of 100 Acre Wood in the context of Taoism. I really enjoyed it. I know it's a rather old book. I definitely felt like he changed some of the characters, Hoff, that is, to suit his purpose, but I didn't mind. It was a meditative story. I learned a lot. It was lovely. Patron Saints of Nothing by Randy Roubaix, Learning Ally as well. This one took me way too long to get through. I was the listener for Justin, who read it, and wow. I loved it. I learned so much about the Philippines and about Duterte. I also learned how to pronounce Tagalog because my reader mispronounced it a lot. The characters were so rich. The familial dynamics were fantastic. The story itself never got boring. There were parts I felt dragged on a bit, but overall I stayed intrigued, and it was just such an honor to be able to be a part of the production of this audiobook, because Roubaix is insanely talented and such an incredible writer. And also, in the back of the book, he dedicates it to bookstagrammers and booktubers, so guys, we're doing well. These two I read in tandem solely so my APUSH teacher can't tell me that I'm falling victim to confirmation bias a ton. So I read The Ride of a Lifetime by Bob Iger, as well as Why Women Have Better Sex Under Socialism by Kristen R. Godsey at the same time. Because Bob Iger ran Disney, which is like the epitome of capitalism, and Godsey is a socialist, and so am I. I actually quite enjoyed The Ride of a Lifetime. I think it's really sad what creativity has been reduced to in the film industry and just creative industry in general. However, Bob Iger has had a very interesting life. I enjoyed hearing about the behind the scenes. I don't really care about the transactional deals, for example, between Disney and Pixar, Disney and Marvel, but it was still interesting. It was well written, it was well composed, and I did genuinely enjoy reading about his journey. Why Women Have Better Sex Under Socialism, I'm definitely going to make a unique video about. I kind of want to talk about it in the context of Jane Austen, because I think they kind of go hand in hand. But I'll explain that later, potentially in another video. This is good. If you're not super familiar with the intersection that is between feminism and economic freedom, this would be a really good place to start. I already knew a lot of what was in this book, which I suppose is good, but it did make it a little more boring for me. It felt like rehashing topics I was already familiar with. That said, again, it's a great introductory piece. It's not too radical, I don't think, and I definitely think there are things to be derived from it, knowledge-wise and entertainment-wise, even though it's nonfiction. The book discusses women and economic status in very binary terms. So just so you know, in case you're interested in something with a little more intersectionality, this might not be it. Then I read this book. It's not a book, it's a choreo play. I think that's what it's referred to as. Some of the best poetry, I think I can classify as poetry, even though it's performance poetry, that I have read in my life. Just the mastery of language and flow and rhythm it was just so enticing to read When the Rainbow Is Enough, and I would highly recommend it to everybody. It's not something everyone can probably relate to. I could relate to some of the struggles of, being a woman in America, but clearly I'm privileged in my race and my economic standing. But it blew me away. My library had it on display for Black History Month. I picked it up because I'd heard a lot about it. I think Susan from Susan is Reading mentioned it at some point. Wow. I will reiterate, fantastic. Please read it. Brilliant piece of literature. And honestly, another one we need to be taught in schools. It's not hard. It's not hard to find good books to teach our children that will expand not only their cultural and social awareness and expand their empathy, but will give them a fuller, better rounded education and teach them technique in the process. This is brilliant work. The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I listened to this as an audiobook, some racial insensitivity in the beginning, FYI, but I listened to this primarily while walking. Walking is one of my favorite activities of all time. I'm really trying to develop a habit where I wake up at 6:30 on school days, and go on a walk around the block 15 to 20 minutes while the sun's coming up, and I just plug in an audiobook while I'm on my way, and it's brilliant. It's fantastic. I'm saying brilliant a lot. New adjective. Spectacular. Marvelous. Great. This was a particularly fun book to listen to while walking because where I live, it's springtime. Spring is springing. There are buds on the trees and robins everywhere and magpies. And in this past year, we moved and we're in a neighborhood that's a little more rural now. And I saw deer on my most recent walk, and that was incredible. They were just eating their morning breakfast. Three deer, and they just looked up at me, and I looked down so they wouldn't be too scared, and wow, amazing. And for a book that's about springtime and secret gardens and the power of nature and friendship and love and childhood, it was a great time. It was a great time, and I sincerely believe that the way you read a book or where you are in your own mind and heart when you read a book influence the way that book touches you. And this is a prime example. I think I would have enjoyed it far less had I read it inside on a chair rather than out among nature and doing what the book was doing. which is reconnecting with Mother Earth. Also, got some heirloom carrot seeds in honor of finishing this book. So, yeah, I'm gonna make some carrots. I'm gonna grow some carrots. And just on the topic of nature, that's been something that's helping me a lot lately. I've been having a bit of a tough time with mental health, which I think can be expected for most people, specifically those my age and at this point in the school year. Outside is helping. And I know that in itself is a privilege. And I'm so grateful to be able to live in a place where it's relatively safe for me to go on walks and be surrounded by the world and have clean air. That's shouldn't be a privilege, but welcome to the USA. And then the last book that I have finished in Q1 before we briefly talk about what I'm reading now is Timeline by Michael Crichton, who is our lovely founder of Jurassic Park. Elon Musk and business partner, please do not remake Jurassic Park. Please do not do healthcare. Vaccines are good, guys. They're good. Very much so. Please get vaccinated when you can and if you can. Timeline follows a similar vein as Jurassic Park in that it is sci-fi. It deals with quantum teleportation. I felt very smart reading it because the word quantum was there even though I didn't understand a lot of it. The idea is that time travel in this alternate world is not possible, but traveling to different places in time is possible. The idea of a multiverse, which Spider-Man helped me understand a bit more. These characters travel back to medieval France, and they are trying to rescue the professor who went there on accident, but while they're there, they encounter a lot of obstacles and sword fights and battles and guillotine. No, actually, I don't think there was a guillotine. That would have been great, though. Trebuchets. It was really entertaining. I enjoyed the use of medieval English and French. I learned quite a bit. Michael Crichton was very good and thorough in his research and had like a bibliography in the back of a fictional book, which is impressive and fun. It just felt like a labor of love. And I'm not super into medieval Europe. However, it was interesting. And while I was reading it, we signed up for our classes for senior year, and I'm going to take AP European History, partially because I quite enjoyed Timeline. Not as good as Jurassic Park, definitely dragged on too long. That's my main critique of it, is I got a little bored about halfway through because it just felt like the same thing was happening over and over, challenge, solve, but great. Nonetheless, great, and I'm falling deeply in love with sci-fi. Speaking of which, what I'm reading now, Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. It's taking me way too long to read, and I'm so sorry about that. I think I started it like February 11th. I'm just trying to take my time because, so good. It's so good, and it takes place, like 5-6 years from today, and it's just so interesting to see how Butler envisioned a dystopian future of this world that I'm so near to in present day. It's just interesting to see what she thought and compare it to what is, specifically in light of COVID. The creativity and imagination in this book is brilliant. I actually really like the idea of following a character going through these hardships and forming their own religion and worldview from these experiences. So Earthseed, the religion, is super fascinating. It's very sad. It's a very sad book filled with loss and depictions of extreme poverty and some violence. But it's so good. Oh my gosh. I think I have 2.5 hours maybe left on the audiobook. I will verify that for you, but I'm just deeply enjoying it and will definitely be reading more Octavia Butler soon. There's a booktuber I recently started watching whose name I can't remember. I'm so sorry. Channel I will put here and in the description box below. And they talk about Octavia Butler all the time. So definitely go check out that channel if Octavia Butler is up your alley. Yeah. 3 hours, 18 minutes, close enough. The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Guys, I finally did it. I checked it out. And, wow, is it good? I will say it's specifically good, in my opinion, because I'm just very, very general knowledge, but acquainted with the history upon which it's based. It is fictional and fantasy, but I took AP World History last year, and some of the things and events mentioned in the book have direct parallels to what I know happened in history. So that's just fun. It's fun because AP World is kind of not applicable a lot of the time, but it definitely is in cases like this, which is really neat. Main character, awesome. I love the critique of meritocracies, which are 100% designed to keep the poor and illiterate in their place, which is a direct paraphrase from the book itself. It's also whimsical. It also talks about drugs. It's brilliant, and I'm not very far in. I think I'm about 75 pages in. I know it gets really sad, and it's probably going to make me cry, and I'm ready for that. I need, sometimes crying is good, and books help with that. Speaking of crying, I think this one's supposed to be sad too. A Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Madeline Miller went to Brown for ancient Greek and Latin and taught both languages, which was like super cool. I have really not started. I'm a chapter in. My friend Austin is lending me his copy. Thank you, Austin. I've just heard so much that I know it's going to be amazing, and I cannot wait to get to it properly. All right, that's what I am reading. Quarter 1, I almost said 3, quarter 1, 2021. Quarter 2, I'm so excited for because that includes summertime, and summer is always my best time for reading because I'm not burdened by the horrors that are AP Stats and Bio. Interesting, yes. Hard? Yeah. In terms of looking forward beyond reading, my documentary comes out so soon. I know I haven't really talked about it on here, but I'm making a documentary. It'll be posted here. I'm so excited for you to see it. If you so choose to see it, that would be great. What else? Musical is going well. Little Women, I'm playing. Oh, I'm so glad. So I don't have a ton of time on my hands right now, but I really wanted to be a part of the musical, and I'm so glad that I got a smaller role because then I can see it all unfold, but not also have to be there all the time. So I'm Mrs. Kirk, who owns the boarding house that Joe works at in New York, so I have to work on my Irish accent, and that should be good. My dad thought I should do the Lucky Charms Irish, but I thought that might be a little over the top. But yeah, that is where I am, and I hope you're well as can possibly be, and I'll see you later, guys. Have a great, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.